Hello, I am your host, the Italian Ace, and today we're going to be taking a stroll through the Pokemon franchise. And what better way to do that than for a documentary with someone who is very new to all of the world of Pokemon.
Was that your clap?
No.
Would you like to clap? I clapped last time.
Sure.
It's a much better clap. Okay.
Okay.
I cross my legs. The
Sure.
extra
Yeah, you'll cross your legs. I'll have
fancy.
like the
Corny.
professor posture.
Okay.
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 Ready? Okay. So, you know basically nothing about Pokemon, right?
Zero.
Well, you know something from like what I've told you, I guess.
I know the music.
You know the music.
I edited to the music.
She did. She's the one from the intro. The new intro, maybe at this point. We don't know for sure yet.
That's true. We'll find out.
Potentially a new intro. You guys will let us know in the comments. But I think you'll find it pretty interesting. You know, it's like it has a little something for everyone, and maybe you will never be as big of a fan as I am, but you might grow to appreciate some of the Pokemon stuff. Plus, you have to study for this because there'll be a quiz at the end. So, like, yeah. Well, we're gonna have basically 4 parts, and we'll start with the video games that started everything Pokemon related, and we'll move through. We'll touch on the TCG and the manga, the anime, the side games, the internet, content creators, all of the Pokemon stuff that you can think of. And by the end, you'll probably know like 1/1000th of all of the Pokemon stuff that is stored somewhere in my brain, and that would probably free up a lot of useful space, but what can you do? But yeah, I think we can get right to it.
Let's go. Andiamo.
Andiamo. See, she speaks Italian too.
Fluently.
You already know something, right? You know the shiny Pokemon stuff.
Yes, shiny versus sparkly Pokemon. It's gonna be my hardest question.
Okay. Well, you know, like these games, they've been around for 26 years, almost 27. So not exactly a new franchise, but I mean, it hasn't changed drastically in the main games. You know, you can still tell it's the same company and the same concept if you look at the very first games and these newest ones, and they both have some weird glitches in there. So you know, like they're keeping the theme there, but I mean, there's some things that I go back to those games sometimes to play them, and they feel almost empty without some of the newer mechanics. It's like, oh, there's like nothing else to do. Like, you're just the very bare bones. But people have nostalgia for them, you know. Like, you also get people being like, oh, Gen 1, those are the best games. They're not. They're really bad, actually, but they're a great first step.
And what generation are we on now?
9.
Okay.
Generation 9.
Okay.
About once every 3 years, there's a new generation. Used to be more like 3.5, but they've kind of fallen into the same pattern lately, where it's every 3 years. It's the new generation, so
okay.
We can just assume.
And what is a new generation? Like, what is
basically, it's whenever the new main series games come out. So Scarlet and Violet, those are the newest ones, right? The very first ones were Red and Green for the Japanese version, and then Red and Blue for the American version. Those games actually were the only ones that I know of that were different enough between Japan and the US, because they also used to come out like almost a year apart, way back when. And
okay, so the Red and Green was Generation 1.
Yes.
And now Scarlet and Violet is Generation 9.
9.
Okay.
Yeah. There you go. See? Perfect. You
Quiz
already know
question.
everything. Quiz question.
Okay, so with each generation, have the Pokemon games, what's been added? Is it better? Is it worse? Are more why are people still here after 9 generations of video games?
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with even from the very beginning, they just found a formula that works. You know, like these games, they have something for, I think, anyone that at least is interested in video games in general. Like you can find something. I've not really met someone who played through a whole Pokemon game and said no, that was all of it was bad. You know, they could probably try to change things up more often. But I understand the worry. You change too much, and then people are gonna have some kind of backlash. I mean, people have been here for a long time at this point, and even I've been here for a while. Like most of my life, I've been playing Pokemon, and it's weird to think about a time before I was playing Pokemon. I've been playing for, I don't know, like 17 years, and there's some things. Yeah, man, I was like a kid, super little kid.
Yeah.
That's when I would have struggled with the games because I didn't even know what was going on, and they were, yeah, and they were also my first ever games were in English, and I was like an Italian kid. I didn't speak English when I was that young. Like I started speaking English kind of when I was 10, but really when I moved to the US, right? And so I had to actually ask my parents to buy me the other versions of the games just so I knew what was happening. Because, like, they were... Like, I was just playing blind, basically. I was just looking at the numbers of the moves, and I'm like, well, this number is higher, so the move is probably better. Not realizing what other drawbacks there were.
So there's, like, a collector's edge to it, there's a competitive edge to it, and there's also, like, a leisure edge to it that's maybe newer. What are those like 3 elements in the game?
I would say the collector's edge is the easiest one to identify because everyone does it. Even if you want a competitive team, you have to catch the Pokemon first, right? Mm-hmm. So you're gonna be looking in the wild for Pokemon, and this used to be a lot less fun, I think, before they introduced the overworld Pokemon that you can actually see what you're going to run into. I wish it would just do it like Legends Arceus, where you can just catch them in there and you don't have to actually have an encounter, but maybe they'll bring that back for future games. I don't know. But the collector side, I mean, between this and like the shiny Pokemon, that's a big one. And I think especially with like content creators rising, shiny Pokemon just became super popular. And so something that used to be very niche is like everyone does it. Like, I think anyone who's played Pokemon has tried shiny hunting at some point. And it's just, you can just do whatever. You don't even have to pay attention usually. You can just be watching like a movie and then just have the game and you look down every so often to see if you get a shiny and you can just pass the time, you know?
So is this isn't a sparkly Pokemon?
It's not the shiny, no.
Oh.
No, you're good. So that's the collector side, but the competitive side is, I guess, more niche still. Like people have been getting into it more because they've made it more accessible, but it requires time just to get a team going in the game. Like you need to usually breed for the Pokemon, or at least you have to have the items to make their stats the right ones. And so between bottle caps and like hidden ability capsules and all that, it still takes either resources or time or both just to get one team done. And then if you're not really used to competitive, you're probably going to make a team that doesn't work. And so then you have to make another team, right? And so I think one of the great things they've done is you can rent some of the actual teams people have made now for like big events. They will give you the code and you can just use them for yourself and try out competitive. But that's probably never going to be something that everyone does because it's just, it requires something beyond just wanting to play Pokemon. You want to learn of the, not hidden, but like deeper mechanics behind the games. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite Pokemon content creators and probably my favorite person to watch do competitive Pokemon is Wolfie. And he's a Pokemon World Champion. He still has strategies that I would never come up with, right? Like I look at it and I'm like, yeah, I would have never thought to do that. That's not something that would have crossed my mind. So even within the community, there's people who focus on different things. If anything, I'm more so just interested in all things Pokemon, for the video games at least. So I just have a lot of random trivia knowledge going on because I just love playing the game. Now there's still a lot of luck involved between critical hits and like moves not being 100% accurate and the chances of doing different conditions or effects or whatever. But that's probably one of the things that people like. Some people really like it actually. I don't really care one way or another, but some people really like the luck aspect, which I think is interesting because I always get unlucky usually. So I've accepted it, but it's not like my favorite thing. There's actually one of the many characters in this game. This game had some interesting characters. This is one of your professors at the academy that you can also battle in the league because he doubles as like an Elite Four member.
An Elite Four?
Yes. That's like, to become the champion, you take on the Pokemon League. And the Pokemon League basically is made up of 4 Elite Four members, like 4 strong trainers. And then the champion. And you have to beat all of them in succession to be the Pokemon League champion.
Okay.
But in this game, it almost makes more sense than before. Because before it was kind of like only one person would be champion and it would just... Technically, if you beat them, you would be the new champion and you would be defending your title, but they didn't really have that ever except for Gen 7. Mm-hmm. You would just keep facing the same champion again, which didn't make too much sense. But now it's like being a champion is just a rank of trainer. It's not a special title. So if you beat the league, you just become like the highest level trainer for the game, but you don't do anything crazy. Like become the only champion of the region, and then So I don't know. I kind of like that. Mm-hmm. It makes it more logical. This one computer character, like an NPC as you would call them, which is just non-playable characters, right? They were able to have a team of just these evolutions, which are just these Pokemon that all look similar because they evolved from the same one. Okay. But there's like a bunch of different possibilities. Okay. And that's one of the big things I think that draws people in. It's just you can kind of make whatever team you want because there's so many options. Like we're over 1,000 Pokemon in the games at this point, so you can really do whatever you want,
So that's a big draw.
That's a big draw.
Creating your team.
Yes, that's one of the big things. Like let's say the Pokemon World Championships, right? Which are an actual tournament that people compete. That's hard to win. There's just one person in the whole world that wins every year, right? Mm-hmm. But the team composition is always interesting for me to see because it shows a person's play style.
Okay, so we covered like the competitive side of it, the collector side of it, and the leisure side of it is just like the exploration thing, which is newer.
So, I mean, it's definitely newer the way they've done it now, where it's just an open world game, so you can go anywhere without really having to like go in different loading screens or whatever, and you have like items that you can find throughout and like Pokemon that are just everywhere, and you can climb like on different surfaces or surf or whatever, and a lot of it was already in the games. Like I always thought of Pokemon as somewhat open world, and Legends Arceus to me was already open world, but this is the first time that they're really like officially, according to every definition in the book, an open world experience, and it does feel different. So I understand what people mean when they say that, but the leisure part was there from the beginning, I think, because let's say you just want to have like a fun battle with your friends, you can just use whatever Pokemon you have on your team. That doesn't have to be a competitive thing. You can just see what's going on there. So the leisure is just part of like playing a game, Mm-hmm. As the now former president of Nintendo said, if it's not fun, why bother? That was an actual quote.
That was an actual quote.
That was an actual quote. For Reggie.
You better cite it correctly for the documentary. I'm just kidding. I don't really know. I mean, you technically do, because you said who.
I did.
Okay. Okay, so that's like the biggest hook. You know, all three aspects of that. They kind of cover all audiences there.
Yeah.
Cool. Do you have any other introductory things you'd wanna state?
All I'll say is just I think these new games hit on something that like most games were missing, and that was a good story. Like Scarlet and Violet has a lot of issues, but the story, that was for the first time ever really well done. Like yes, Gen 5 had decent stories, and I did really like the Gen 7 one. I was a big fan of Alola, but they kind of screwed it up in the sequels for that, so like it could have been better. And Gen 5, the first games, the story was good, but the actual games were bad, in my opinion. And then the second games, the story wasn't as good, but the games were good. But this one, like, it's actually compelling. Like, I wanted to know what was going on. It wasn't just, well, I'm just going through and playing Pokemon, and I guess the story is there. I actually was interested to see where it was going. Even if a lot of it you could still tell, because, you know, like, you've seen movies before. It's nothing revolutionary, but, you know, it was fun.
Cool. Boom. See? It just came out. I wasn't even thinking about it.
Exactly.
Everyone knows the commercial. It's just instant.
But the question is it rarer or is it more rare?
Is it... I think it's more rare. I'm feeling very strong.
Let us know in the comments. Rare. Is it rarer or more rare? Someone will tell us.
That's not going to be the end credits question.
The end credits, yeah. I think that would be a good...
That's the audience pop quiz, but I'll get a harder pop quiz. Are these bachicatas? Is he being bachicatas?
Yes he is. Yes, he is. For anyone at home wondering, these are all borrowed terms. There we go. Now we know.
Why'd you have to do two? Just kidding. See, okay. There's more likely to... That's fine. It shouldn't mess it up. Adobe Premiere wouldn't mess it up.
Plus, you have to study for this because there'll be a quiz at the end. So they can, yeah. It's funny because we decided this beforehand, so...
I had to act surprised.
No, you did. I agree. We can just cut it out. We can just cut it out.
That's true. I'm in charge of the scissors when it comes to film.